Hey people, this is going to be platinum here. This is the old ancient Egyptian god Thought, and he says that he created everything and wrote every knowledge that there ever was. It's hard to deny it because every time you sign your name, you're paying your tribute to Thought. You know, it's where your word autograph comes from, and it's the thoughtograph. And so they say graph is writing, but it's a little more than that. You see this image often, it's a graph. He was graphing everything. And it's easy to tell here, that he was graphing the stars and writing poetry about it. Everything's in meter. That's why he graphs everything out, and he holds his measuring stick with him. And as you read this, it's pretty easy to see that Thought had wrote it. And John just means time. It'd be the word for day in Hebrew. So if you're new here, I got a bunch of new subs. I hit all this a little bit. You just have to believe me. I can't go show you all the proofs in the short movie. But every time you see this EK, replace that K with an L. And so what this says is tell Naya. Tell no. Tell no. That's little children. All day long you're telling them, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. Tell no. And tell nigh, move. And so tell not, move, tautograph. So that lets me know, a tautograph is painting somebody's picture. That's a human's picture. And you got to tell them to not move because I'm painting your tautograph. And so this could be an excellent chapter. I think it talks about the Antichrist in here more than anywhere else in the Bible, just in John 2 here. And I don't read the New Testament often, but I can get most of these words. There might just be a couple of them that got me confused. But I can get enough to show that they're definitely trying to twist this because this is something they don't want you to know. And you see it down here again, with the little children again, the tell not. Except here it's and none. And so none is the book of the earth. It means all the times of the heaven and their connected plant. It's the seed wind, when to plant your seeds, and the seed wind. And none tell not. And this looks like a minute in, but it's not. And this is where they got, and the minute in what to in is on, the fain Ruth. But it's actually reading to have it. And none tell not from have it in. Of to in is on. And so this looks like a feigner, but it's a favor, F-A-V, the following E turns to a V. The favor has, the favorite has come in. He appears, we might have, the favorite has come in. The Parisian, that's the Pharisee, but actually the second R reads as an I, as in Paris, the Parisian, and much not is shown to men, and much is not shown to men. Some stuff they're not catching, like all of it. Of ought of in, ought to win. The perusing ought of, perusing around. So this reads a couple different ways. It's what all these markings are underneath here, and these words read backwards and forwards, inside out, and it says a lot more the second time. And some of these words, they don't make sense unless you read them that way, unless you know all the old stories, And the on, that was the gods of the Assyrians, the on was the heavens, gods of heaven, the on. And so when you read it with this mark here, it reads, N-A-E becomes N-E-S, and it's Nisan, the first month. And none tell nigh from have it in, of to in is on, of that time when in is on, when the God is on. The favorite has come in. The favorite has come in, Parisian. And much not is shown to men of ought to when the peruse you ought of, when you ought to get the hell out, when it's coming. And so it seems like that's what the Antichrist is saying up here. And This is pseudo. Pseudo, it's not a lie, it's a different name. And it actually reads with the P. And it means pursue. Pursue, coming up behind, pursue. Pseudos, those coming up behind. And that word comes up all throughout here. And the Antichrist a bunch. And so let me explain this trailer I put on a lot of movies. I filmed this about 2015 after I watched the debates, and I seen that the Antichrist had a better chance of winning president than anybody we had up there. I didn't like none of them. I damn sure didn't like Trump, but after I seen what he was going up against, I liked Trump better than all of them. But yeah, I thought that I had a chance of winning as the Antichrist. But the more I read this Bible, the more I think I might be the Antichrist. But you can see how they totally just didn't want you to understand what that meant. Who is the liar? They didn't want you to know, that pursues this. Tis Sestin, Tisestn, tis Sestin, your ancestry, tis Sestin of pursue this. And the children of pursue this. They much, MH, they much, not, the opposite of not much. And they much of are now men as. Audi Yessa was. And Audi Yessa was, that means a slave. You ought to be saying Yessa. And you see that when it says, and of these commandments you shall do. That's what it says in the Greek and the Hebrew, Yessa. It means the slave. The slave was. Tisestin of pursue this. They much of are now men, as Adi Yessa was of Kistin. The Kistin or the CES. The Sestin of the Cross-twos. The Sestin of Cross-twos. Done married out of the family. The Cross-twos out as the out-assestin, out of the family. The out-assestin, not the incestin, but the part of the family that was out-assestin are now just regular men, Audi Yessa. They're all slaves now. Of antics rise to. That's what they're scared of. They're not scared of the Antichrist. They're scared of the antics that rise to. So are now men as ton, as to wear it, to fashion, to ton, and fate, F-A-T-E. The fate, R-A-U-T-O-N. The fate wrought on. Why meaning how or who, and the fate wrought on, who on, not brought but formed, wrought, hammered in. So I haven't even touched this chapter yet. I just read a couple things. I was shooting on down here and hitting the top of paragraphs, and I seen they was all very interesting. And this Greek really helps to translate a lot of the Hebrew words, because they spell them with a lot less letters in the Hebrew. But we know is the genius coming. The genius is coming. That's what they're scared of. They had to change the meaning of every word because everybody knew what the cosmo was. It's the cause from on. Everything happens on Earth has a connection in the stars. What that means, the cosmo. Doesn't mean world, it means the connection between the earth and the world, the cosmon, and much. And so this is, they say, is brotherly love, but it's the G turns into an N when it comes after an A, and that's why you see the word angel spelled A-G-G, and you see a lot of other words that they'll get right. Sometimes they just don't want to get it right, because it's much on a fate. Faded on, much on a faded on the cosmon, the cosmo. They didn't want you to know that the entire Bible is about astrology. That tells me that Rome's the one that went to war and burnt everybody's libraries so people couldn't read the ancient language. I showed in that last movie I did yesterday that when this new astrology hit Rome, it about took Rome apart. Nobody would show up for work if it wasn't in the stars. And if they didn't have a chance to check the stars yet, they weren't leaving the house until they did. And so back in the day, everybody knew that all these names, everything in here, had to do with astrology. And so for thousands of years, they've been killing people and burning libraries and rewriting and retranslating so people couldn't read this. You see a commandment, entolling. That's what I was entoled in, the commandment. And this palin here, this is where your word paleo comes from. It means old, and you see it comes up through here a bunch. They'll get it right sometime, the paley, the old, and the Palean. But it talks about the graph much up in here, and that's the main reason I want to read this. Knowledge, the genius coming. The taught to a genius coming. And so anybody wondering, there is nowhere to learn this. I just spent years just studying the Hebrew Bible and learned a bunch of it, and I would look a little bit at the Greek while I was doing it. And I had to learn the Hebrew first before I could figure out the Greek. And that's what it says in here. And that's what all this paleo is about. Beloved, not a commandment new I am writing to you, but a commandment of old. It doesn't say Hebrew. It says Palean. Palean is the old language that the Hebrews are claiming is theirs, but it's not. It's Palean. There's no such thing as Hebrew. Hebrew was invented language, invented in 1940 when they created that country. No Jews can read Hebrew. They read Greek better than Hebrew. And no Greeks can read the ancient Greek. And if you don't read English, you're not going to be able to read either one of them. You see it in the word angel. In the Greek, it's spelled with two G's, A-N-G-E-L, the angelos. You see it again in the word English, A-G-G, which is a A-N-G-L, angelic. The English are the angelics. You see it in the word England, the angels. I-A, plural, the angels. And you see it in the covenant, in the Hebrew, it's Brit, B-R-I-T, British, in writ. And so the English, the angels were the people, and the Brit was the language. The same thing for the Hebrew language. It's spelled O-Brit, the of writ, O-V-R-I-T. They weren't slaves, they were over it. They were in charge. They got that whole story twisted. So they call this Yesa is our advocate. And they'll usually try to find a word in the first paragraph, the first couple lines to name it. It's where they get that from. But if you go through here and just pull out all these capital letters, you see they put them in strange places sometimes. And sometimes you think it should be capitalized. It's not there, And it's the T and the P and the P and the X. And it's the top fix, the T-P-F-I-X, the top fix. And it's the topics, T-P-P-I-X, the topics. And that's what's going on. Because you see, here's the beginning of a line. You think they would capitalize that. And then there's words that they say mean nothing that are capitalized off in the middle. And they say it just means I have known. The Gnostic, the G-N-O. And that's where your word Enoch comes from. A legionati Enochi. The K-A-A, Enochi, what on. The legionati Enochi, what on. That's all your old Sumerian stories, the Enochi. That was the gods that spilt their seed in the man. And so that's the first thing it says is tell not from out autograph. And so tell not from out autograph. That's what all this pseudos mean. Don't tell in your autograph. Give them a pseudos. And tell not from out autograph whom in a name, an N-A-M-H, a name. Whom in a name, amarit, hemorrhage, blood, the blood of writ. We, just the W, and we on it is art, Art spelt with the H, a royal son, oh, Arthur there. And I'm sure that's where Hollywood got that name. They knew what that meant, the prince. Art Paracleton. And Pericles, that was the last Antichrist. And so it's probably a word that comes from Pericles, but this is Perry, this is around. And we'll see them tease that word, Perry, a bunch in here. And I talked about this before, and I think this is a whole total made-up character just to fill these definitions that they don't want to say where they come from. He's known as the father of toxicology. That's what the entire Bible's about. But he's got a page full, that's the first clue that they're trying to force something on it. And, that's probably what it means right there, Pericles overwrit. In his display of contempt for conventional medicine, Pericles publicly burned editions of the works of Galen in Abin Sin. And so best chances are, this wasn't his name. This is what everybody called him, because that word already had a meaning. And not only was he a physician and father of toxicology, but he had affinity with the Hermetic and the Neoplatonic and Pythagorean, and a practicing astrologer. Was the first to recognize physicians required solid academic knowledge in natural sciences. And you see where they got the name spelt right. He's an alchemist. He knows the code, worships the devil. Azoth was the universal solvent. Became a poetic word for the element mercury. It was believed to be in all metals. That's where the devil got his horns. Wore the collar and had a big ass head. Paraclesis. And so, to be Paracleton means the act of Pericles, which was toxicology. A Swiss physician, alchemist, lay theologian, philosopher of the German Renaissance, pioneer in several aspects of the medical revolution of the Renaissance, emphasizing the value of observation in combination with received wisdom. He is credited as the father of toxicology. Also had substantial influence as a prophet or a diviner, or the devil's advocate. They'll give this the call it on, over call it on. And Paracleton, the coming forced on fate, Fate, the fate rages, Rajes, the fate rage soon, christened, to christened, and then Kai becomes a V, Ivon, and christened Avon. And they're getting this righteousness from, it comes up lower down here longer. And just like the Hebrew and the Greek in the Old Testament, you see a word at the top line, you go to the bottom, and you'll be able to figure it out better. But, that's just the Vav, and this is a Divosun, and this is devotion. Devotion on. And they'll usually tease that word around a couple of times, maybe at the end of paragraphs or at the beginning. And sometimes they'll bust it up, in a bunch of 1 and 2 letter words to break it down and really show you what it means. But I'm reading that D with the christen over here. The christened and then Ivon. Christened Avon. And christened Avon means, to get out your bow, the archer's bow. And so, tell not from out autograph, whom in a name writ it, the blood have writ it. We on it is writ, arth, over call it on. And so that could mean, from the art to overcall, as in speak it. They remove the art from the book, so they're explaining what it says, giving the words. Because it still says it's illegal to give the name up here, tell not from the autograph. And it's talking about the astrology. It's impossible to get the names. You got to figure them up with math. And so overcall it on the coming forced on fate. The rage soon christened Yvonne. The war's fixed to go on. Tell not your autograph and go anonymous. Whom in a name the blood had writ it. And so, if you're talking to a old Chinese man, he's going to say, to tell not from out autograph. It means, keep lead in your pencil and don't be spreading the bloodline. Tell not from out of autograph. Whom in a name hemorrhaging the blood writ it. We on it is a mart. We on it is a smart. The smart of the art to understand the pictures. And we on it is art. Over call it on. The coming forced on fate rages. The fate of Ra was the Pharaoh. In Egypt, the Pharaoh, when he died, he became Ra, fate Ra, the sun. In the fate rage soon christened Yvonne. They fixing to go to war. So it looks like, the Father, Jesus, Christ on, are the rebels. I'll have to read on down and see. But I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.
I am the Antichrist, and I approve of this message.